Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 167 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Giltaca. Thanks for joining me again. Today on the show, we've got a lot to cover. Changes to the explosive regulations have happened, and that's concerning black powder and reactive targets like Tannerite. We'll give you the skinny on that. Common sense conservative Senator Don Plett has had a birthday this month, this May, and that means he only has 1 year left to serve in the Senate, and he's a great friend to gun owners, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And new regulations on the transfer of firearm magazines between licensed individuals are now enforced. We're going to give you all the information about that as well. All that and more on this episode of the podcast. But first, a word from our sponsors. A huge thank you goes out to our great friends over at the Saskatchewan Rivers chapter of Safari Club International. They do a lot of great work over there, including supporting the CCFR and the CCFR Radio Podcast. Check out all their great work at saskriverssci.com. That's saskriverssci.com. And thank you so much to our great friends over at Vortex Canada. They continue to support the CCFR podcast and the CCFR. Can't say enough about them. Check out all their great products at vortexcanada.net. That's vortexcanada.net. Vortex, the force of optics. Need a new boomstick? Bullseye North is Canada's shooting superstore and a proud supporter of the CCFR. With a wide selection of guns and top trending gear for any shooter, they have what you need. Plus, free shipping over $250, which includes ammo, or flat rate shipping of $17 under $250. Some conditions apply. Subscribe to their weekly newsletter to get first access to the hottest deals. CTOMS has been a provider of trauma care training to military and police in Canada for nearly 2 decades. Now this emergency medical training is being made available to a wider audience through CTOMS online courses. Go to ctomsacademy.com and use promo code CCFR30 to get 30% off. That's ctomsacademy.com. All right, we are back. So I've only got a couple of things I need to cover with you in this segment before we bring Tracy on, because I think Tracy and my conversation was like 30 minutes, right? We really kind of dug into a few things. I think it's going to be entertaining to listen to because there's some interesting commentary there. But yeah, so I'm going to be as brief as I can with you. First thing, I went on my bear hunt last weekend. So I have good news and I have bad news. The bad news is I can't talk about it in this episode because Ashley Stuckless of High BC Hunting, so Ashley has a show on Wild TV like we do. His is a hunting show. He wasn't available to come on this episode. So, but we will have him on in the next episode. And the good news is that we will do a blow-by-blow assessment of the entire trip, including video and B-roll and pictures, and his commentary is going to be great. Okay, so you'll get the full story next time. But I will tell you this. I got more exercise. Luckily, I can handle it. I'm in the best shape that I've been in 20 years easily. But it was still completely grueling because something I don't normally do is put 30 pounds on my back and walk up and down actual full mountains. So it was grueling. But anyway, just to let you know, I got a lot of exercise. I actually got more exercise. I did more than I thought I was physically capable of, which is kind of a neat achievement, like in my own mind. Like I didn't think I could hike that much elevation with that weight on my back because I'd never done it. I never did that much before in my life. So it was pretty cool from that perspective. We'll see what Ashley has to say. He'll probably come on and crap talk me the whole time and be like, yeah, because I think he's part billy goat. I don't know if there's a test for that, but we can find that out. I will also tell you that there were shots fired, so make of that what you will. So there's some interesting stories around that. And a good time was had by all. You know, it was my first hunting experience, so I have some insights, and so will Ashley. So all that to say, next episode you'll hear all about it, and you'll see some footage too. So sorry I can't talk about it this time, but thanks for hanging in there with me when it comes to this bear hunt. The other thing I want to mention is I got an email a few months ago from a fella named Joe, and Joe is an ex-Canadian Forces serviceman, I think, and what he was angry about was he had heard an Edmonton City police officer talking in a press conference with the mainstream media, with CTV, I believe, and he was talking about illegal gun manufacturing. So I think there was some reference to 3D printing. So there might be some nuance here, but he made a quote and Joe took exception to it as a viewer and contacted the Edmonton City Police. He contacted CTV, I believe, and he contacted us. And he's like, hey, man, you can't say these kinds of things because it's irresponsible and it misleads people. So what this officer said was, he said, quote, and this is to my knowledge, this is what was said, with the handgun ban now in place, people are looking for alternate ways to obtain illegal firearms. And that's to imply, obviously, the reason why that rubs people the wrong way, people that know anything, obviously, is because the key source of illegal firearms, especially handguns, is not from licensed gun owners or even 3D printing. It's from illegal smuggling from the United States. In the case of Toronto City Police have said ad nauseum, like repeatedly over and over again for a span of years, that it's like anywhere from 90 to 97% of firearms that they take from criminals and find at crime scenes that came originally from the United States. They were illegally smuggled. Like almost all of them, basically all of them. And out of what's left, then you have stolen firearms. That used to be a larger number, but it's gotten less because they have ways of smuggling these things. And even when they don't smuggle them, next after that, so we're talking about less than a fraction of 1% are probably in equal proportion, on my experience, illegally manufactured firearms and straw purchasing. Like those two are a fraction of 1%. So when that's highlighted, like, oh, now C21, which is what Joe's kind of probably angry about. It's like this is like he's just sucking up to the liberals because he's taking guns from licensed gun owners, shutting down those gun clubs. Get rid of those IPSC shooters, those Olympic shooters. Gotta wipe them out, right? That's what it sounds like he's supporting there. But yeah, and I mean, the only other thing I want to mention on this topic is that I was going to I did do a segment for our TV show, but I was going to put a clip from, if you guys remember, Gun Ban Canada Exposed. So that was a 7-part limited series that the CCFR did and aired on. We produced it. And we aired that on 𝐌𝐞𝐫𝐻. And I'll tell you, to this day, it's some of the best work I think I've ever done. Not that it looks that great. Like, it looks okay. It looks like this, right? But it was every key argument in the gun debate researched and the facts brought forward, which nobody, in my opinion, to all of the different, key, talking points of anti-gunners or the key concerns, public safety concerns of Canadians, no one ever did all of them. And we did. And I'm very, very proud of that. So if you hadn't seen it, go to the CCFR YouTube channel, scroll down, there's a playlist somewhere there, and it's called Gun Ban Canada Exposed. It is 6 half-hour episodes made for TV, so they're 22.5 minutes long when you watch them online. And then episode 7 is an hour long for television, which is 44 minutes in online, because there's no commercials, right? So watch them. It's episode 2, I think, is the one that's where do crime guns come from? So anyway, I looked at that one again. I'm like, man, this is really valuable. People should watch this. So if you haven't seen it, try to scrape up the time, because it's just going to make you better in debates when you're talking to people. If they're like, well, crime guns come from, it's straw purchasing. You may be like, that's not true. And they're like, okay, tell me how. And you're like, well, I don't have those figures with me. It's like, watch that stuff and you'll know exactly how to debate. So it's still there. So anyway, I'm going to show you a clip. But oddly enough, this is me 35 pounds heavier was the first thing that struck me when I watched the clip. Anyway, I'm going to show you this clip. Check it out. When it comes to associating licensed gun owners with the acts of criminals, the topic of straw purchasing comes up.
Somebody with a legitimate firearms license, and they'll purchase it legally with the intention of then reselling it illegally.
If licensed gun owners are buying firearms and selling them to gangs, that's a problem at any level. And there have been some high-profile cases of that in the last few years. Keep in mind, there are 2.2 million licensed gun owners in Canada and thousands of so-called crime guns seized each year. So how often does straw purchasing happen in Canada? Using a combination of mainstream media reporting and case law search tools like CCFR, 2 independent researchers could find no more than 44 examples of this happening in all of Canada between 2003 and 2020, an 18-year period. In fact, the first case ever in Alberta recently occurred in 2016. Justin 𝐥𝐿𝐻𝐿, a licensed gun owner, purchased 40 firearms legally and sold them to unlicensed individuals in 2016. Quote, "This is a fairly novel criminal activity in Canada," end quote, said Crown Prosecutor Adam Garrett. Garrett said this case is the first of its kind in Alberta, though there have been a few similar offenses in Ontario and in British Columbia. So it seems this doesn't happen very often in Canada. The Alberta Crown Council said it themselves. And consider this question. Why would we be relying on independent researchers to determine the number of straw purchasing offenses in Canada in the first place? The answer is, no one is keeping track of them. Not the RCMP, not the Canadian Firearms Program, not NWest, not StatCan, nobody. Haha, it's Fat Rod. Boy, I feel a lot better these days than I did in those days. I will tell you that. And I remember just looking at that, I remember how much work doing those episodes were. It was a lot of work, 100% scripted. It was really difficult. But and 100% researched. I think if you watch those videos on the YouTube versions, all of the links to all the citations are there in the description box, in the comment section. Description box, pardon me, if I remember correctly. But anyway, you can check those out at your leisure. So anyway, yeah. So that whole episode, where do crime guns come from? There's a lot of stuff exposed there too, people lying, and the actual evidence of that and stuff. Anyway, really good stuff. Check it out if you can. All right. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Let's get Wilson on the Skype. All right, via Skype, we've got Tracy Wilson of the CCFR. Wilson!
Wilson! Wilson!
Bam, there it is.
Yeah, you know what? I can do that a little bit louder this time because I'm in here on the holiday Monday and no one else is in the next office, like in the next suite or anything. So
Okay. So you can shout it out.
yeah, I can I just feel like I can be myself now.
Oh my God.
All right. We got lots of stuff, actually. Oddly enough, we thought we were in a pinch for material, and then we started to compare notes, and we got tons of stuff to talk about. So let's get going.
Yeah, we do.
First thing is the Liberals have pushed forward in their quest to eliminate gun violence in Canada. Therefore, they have made some changes to the explosive regulations for black powder and reactive targets like Tannerite. Tell us about it, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, that's right. So they made an amendment to the explosives regulations from 2013. And it's interesting. So they are requiring you to have a PAL to get propellant powder. And basically what they've done is they've taken black powder. You used to be able to go in and buy a maximum of 75 kilograms. And now you cannot purchase more than 25 at a time. Reactive targets, so I think that would be like your Tannerite. You used to be able to go in and get 20 kilograms worth. Now you can only get 6 kilograms worth. And this is in an effort. I suppose what they're trying to say here is that if you were a terrorist or you're going to carry out some kind of horrible explosion, that, you wouldn't drive twice to go and get it, right? You'd just be like, well, I guess I won't commit these crimes today. Well, when in fact, what it does is it just creates more of a burden for licensed gun owners as usual.
Yeah, but it's well documented, and anti-terrorism experts have done research on this, and the data is clear. This, you have to believe the science that 9 times out of 10 terrorists will abandon their plans if you make them make a second trip.
The evidence is clear and overwhelming.
Yeah.
The global literature. And
if you don't believe it, you don't believe in science.
Right.
Yeah, you're a second trip denier. Yeah.
It's just more stupidity, right? I don't know. To me, it just shows how unserious this government is about literally everything, but in particular about public safety and whatever. It's just stupid and, it's a burden.
Well, not to beat it to death, but I mean, for them to make that regulation change, there was a process there. Like someone's puts that on their list, you know what, we need to get this done. And then they had to go through who knows, maybe there was a committee where they had to talk about it. They had to kind of, here's our reasoning. They get a couple of people involved, and they got to go change the regulation. And then they have to communicate that out to the public. There was a process there.
Yeah.
And they spent time doing that.
Time and money. Yep.
Like, I don't know, man. This is the stuff that could be really frustrating if you let it become frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just silly. But again, it just shows that they're a very unserious government and they don't take public safety serious. And it's just another little thing like, oh, let's take this little pin and poke gun owners in the eye again. Here's some other crazy thing just to make you aggravated. So, if you wanted to buy that much now, you'll have to make 2 or 3 trips, right?
Yeah. And, 25 kilograms. Is it kilograms or pounds? It's kilograms, right? It's Canada.
Kilograms of black powder.
25 kilograms is not a joke.
No.
So I don't know. It's
whatever.
Anyway, but that's what's happening. That's what your Liberal government is doing with full support from the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, of course. I mean, the Bloc, and the 2 Greens. Obviously, they're keeping them in too. So anyway, completely ridiculous. Now, part of one of the provisions of Bill C-21, which is needing a PAL to transfer a firearm magazine, is now in effect. And there's a notice up on the RCMP Canadian Firearms Program website. And there's been a little discussion about this.
Yeah, that's right. So this was a provision within C-21 that was requested by the families, I don't know what they're called, the families for the Danforth or Danforth families or something. Anyways, they were a group of some of the family members of some of the victims from the Danforth shooting. You'll remember that was a tragedy carried out in downtown Toronto by a guy with illegal firearms. However, apparently he did go into a firearms store and just go and purchase a magazine. They weren't regulated because they're not guns. So they're saying they need you to require a PAL. Now, what's interesting is if you go to the RCMP website, to the firearms section, and read this, what it says here, it tells you all the information about when this is, a kind of royal assent was received for December 15th for C-21. You can find all this information. But it says, this is the new part. It is the business or individual's responsibility to determine the most effective way to validate that the individual holds a valid firearms license. So it says that it's your responsibility to find the most effective way to check their license, but it doesn't tell you what that is. It just leaves it up to you. So whatever you want, like just look at the card, or do you have to validate it like you would if you're doing transfer of non-restricted? Like, it doesn't really say. So I don't know.
Well, allow me to tell you what's so interesting about this, and this is really interesting. If you were to ask one of the Liberals, or the question was asked in question period to Justin Trudeau, or a claim made, do you have to check a firearms license in order to transfer a magazine? They would say, absolutely. We brought that forward. We made that law. In the past, it wasn't that way. But what they're doing now with magazines by saying it's just your responsibility that you transfer that to someone who has a valid license was exactly how the non-restricted firearm transfer was before Bill C-71, when Justin Trudeau stood up and said, well, right now you don't need to check a license, it's not a requirement. And I actually made a video about that. I'm like, it's in the Firearms Act that you cannot transfer a firearm to someone who is not in possession of a valid firearms license.
Right.
So when it had to do with non-restricted firearms, they're like, yeah, that's not good enough. That's not, you don't have to check. And it's like, well, it says right here that you can't transfer it to somebody that doesn't have a valid license. Yeah, but it doesn't say you have to check. They've done the same thing with magazines as the old way of transferring a non-restricted firearm, and that's completely fine with them. Like they're just they're so hypocritical and such. Yeah, that
part stuck out to me because normally if they're changing a regulation, it sort of defines it. Like it's super clear. This is what you should do. But as usual, it's your responsibility to determine the most effective way.
Yeah.
Well,
what they're doing
open
now,
to interpretation.
What they're doing now was what wasn't good enough before, and then they changed that in Bill C-71 for transferring firearms. And now they're saying, well, you need a PAL to transfer a magazine, and now that's good enough for them, which wasn't good enough for them before. I don't know. They're such a joke of a group of people. Okay, interesting thing. When we did our massive lawsuit against the federal government, our legal team formulated a big stack of ATIPs, and those are the Canadian equivalent to Freedom of Information requests. And our team put together a whole bunch of these, and they were really important in establishing whether or not the government had any factual basis to do the gun ban back in 2020. And the government came back and they said, to get these ATIPs for you is going to take 8 years, if you remember, right? And I think we talked about it on the podcast, on the TV shows, like, yeah, the court case was unreasonably long, and something like that takes anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 years. And they're like, yeah, but your evidence, the evidence that you want from us, it's going to take 8 years. So too bad.
Yeah. They were never going to give it to us.
Yeah. They're just like, yeah, just too bad. We're not giving you what you're entitled to.
Yeah. It's supposed to be 30 days.
Yeah. I got my finger on the scale, and too bad. I don't even care if you see me with my finger on the scale. So things got even more interesting recently.
That's right. So interestingly enough, with this government, the Liberals are very spendy. They have bloated the public service and almost every department, to almost unattainable levels. Like, it's just not sustainable at all. And interestingly enough, they did cut funding to one area, and that's the Information Commissioner. So when you think back about this, right from 2015, they talked about, we will be open and transparent by default. 3 different things have happened recently. They've cut the funding for the Information Commissioner, who oversees the ATIPs and the timeliness of them and whatever. They completely ignored a parliamentary report that was done talking about why it's taking so long and such lengthy waits to get your ATIP results, which is bad. Twice now they've refused to implement the changes that were recommended in that report. And then thirdly, really interestingly, the RCMP firearms report, we haven't had one released since 2021. Now, they've been done. 2022 exists. It's done, but they won't release it. And 2023, I imagine, would be due any day now. It would be completed. Are they going to release that one? Probably not. And I don't know if I'm wearing my tinfoil a little too tight right now or not, but I would almost think there's a reason that they're not releasing these reports. And it's because the data within them aren't going to support the policies that they've implemented. So, yeah, there's just a big mess of stuff going on for a government that promised to be open and transparent by default.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real mess. It's a real mess. And if you notice, like, I think the Auditor General was complaining because their budget was something like a fraction of what it should be. And then there was no ethics commissioner for like a year, or whether they even got one or something like that. And then they tried to appoint some direct family member of one of the Liberals or something like it's I mean, this is the government that complained about, the scandals of, and the backroom dealings, the opaqueness, the secrecy and the scandals of the Harper era. And it's wild. It's breathtaking in its hypocrisy and its corruption,
This place belongs to all Canadians. It belongs to you. But after a decade in power, Stephen Harper thinks it belongs to him. So now, this place is broken. Today, I'm presenting a real plan to fix it. Thomas Mulcair wants us to spend years wrangling over the Constitution. But I know Harper and his government are the problem. And the way to fix this place is to change the government, not the Constitution. Replace this government with a better one. That's what real change starts with. Our plan creates a truly transparent and open government that will put an end to the secrecy and scandals of the Harper decade. Of course, it will reform the Senate, but it will also do much, much more. After all, Harper broke a lot more than just the Senate during his decade in office.
Oh, yeah, we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
And you're right. You look back to 2015 and the way they talked then, and basically now they're just like, forget it. Forget the reports. forget the studies, forget the recommendations on how to fix this stuff, and forget the funding.
Yep.
Anything that's going to hold us to account, we don't support it.
And we don't need any ethics commissioners. We don't need any audits. We don't need any ATIPs. You know, those are the things. Oh, we got no money.
No money for any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because on Twitter, I saw Tim Thurley, who is a great researcher. Like, I follow a lot of his content. He puts out some really great material. And he was upset about this because I know there's a number of ATIPs with really important information that he was being denied access to that information. And he appealed to the information commissioner, and she was able to help him get some results. But of course, now they cut her funding. So shocking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a surprise, and it's not surprising. All right, let's move on. So there's a by-election in Toronto St. Paul's, and this was a riding formerly held, or I guess it's held now by Carolyn Bennett.
Yeah, that's right. So you'll remember Carolyn Bennett actually just got a really nice patronage appointment. She's, what was it here? Oh, yeah. She was appointed ambassador to Denmark. So she stepped down as an MP, loyal, Trudeau, Liberal MP. And this riding has actually been Liberal for about 30 years. Now, we just came out of a by-election. Jamil Javani won in Durham, nailed it. So this one will be really interesting to watch. And currently, the 338 Canada polling on this has it almost at a tie with the Liberals leaning slightly, which is considerably lower than where they were in the last election. I think they won it at 72% or something. It was a landslide. So the Liberals are running Leslie Church, who's a political staffer and organizer, pretty well known within the party. The Conservatives are running Don Stewart. He's a finance guy, he's a numbers guy. And the NDP is running 𝐼𝐿𝐼, who's a nonprofit director. But this by-election in particular is one to watch. I do kind of think it might go to the Liberals. But if this one went to the Conservatives, then, if they're not already ringing the 5-alarm bells over at Liberal headquarters, they would be after this. I think if they didn't win this, Trudeau would have to step down because it's almost one of those sure things. But it's interesting to see the polling at 38% for the Liberals and 35% for the Conservatives, and that was before they had candidates.
Yeah, and so if you say they've had that for over 30 years, then that would mean back, what was it, 4 election cycles ago, when the Liberals were at the lowest point in the history of elections in Canada. They had 34 seats, if I remember correctly. That was one of them that they held on to.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. This is a very strong Liberal stronghold, I guess you would call it. But the projections are not looking so strong for them. It's only leaning Liberal, not a safe bet. So it'll be interesting to watch that. It's a quick by-election. I think June 24th it closes. So it's just interesting timing with the House rising for the summer and all of that going on. But yeah, I'm a little bit of a political nerd, as you know. So I will be keeping my eye on that and watching how that unfolds. But super interesting.
Well, if you and your friends live in the Toronto St. Paul's riding, get out the vote as much as you possibly can. It would be really good to see that seat flip. But either way, by-election ridings have to participate in a general election when that rolls around anyway. And I think maybe that's a riding that we need to focus on because we got a big Project X kind of thing that I keep alluding to, but I can't really talk about until it's rolled out and we pass the next election. Maybe we'll make a focus of that riding because I'd love to see them lose that. I'd love to see them lose every seat, actually.
Well, me too. But this one in particular is interesting to watch. And I love that there's going to be a super spicy by-election just before the summer. So
yeah. I'd like to see them neck and neck with the Greens. Anyway,
they could share a scooter or something.
Yeah. They could all meet in the same minivan for their caucus meetings.
Yes.
Okay. So, some sort of sad news. It's not happening yet, but it's kind of popped up on the radar. Our good friend Senator Don Plett is going to be turning 75 in a year. and that means he is automatically ineligible to sit in the Senate anymore.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got 1 year left with Senator Don Plett. He's a longtime leader of the Conservative Senate, a staunch supporter of Canada's gun owners. I think, I can't think of a senator who's been more committed to our cause than him. But he's in his final year of being a senator. And then I guess he'll either have to find something else to do or just retire, I suppose. But well-earned retirement for him, should he choose that. But yeah, of course, it is mandatory retirement at 75. So yeah, 1 year left with Senator Plett. So it'll be interesting to see his final year in the Red Chamber.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's going to be facing any more firearm legislation during that time.
No,
I think the Liberals they're done with the firearms file. I think they've been beat up enough by it. And they've mishandled it at an unprecedented level. I don't think any government has mishandled anything as bad as the Liberals have mishandled the firearms file. So yeah, they thought they're going to make hay with it, and it's blown up in their face. So
yeah, I'm going to miss seeing him at all the events here around O-Town, though.
Yeah.
It would be not the same without him.
Well, he's not gone yet.
No, we have 1 more year.
Yeah. All right. And second to last thing that we have here on the agenda is AGM tickets are now gone, sad face.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So if you were planning to attend the AGM in person, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. But we've got some guests.
Yeah, we got some really cool guests. So we're going to have Alberta Minister of Justice, �W𝐞𝐫𝐬𝐿 come out. He's going to say a few words to the people and hang out with the stakeholders and check it out. He's always been a great supporter as well. And then, of course, the one and only Canadian hunting legend, Jim Shockey, is our keynote speaker. And he's going to, I'm sure, regale us with some amazing hunting stories. And God, he can really tell a story. Of course, he's got his brand new book out as well. And then, even if you can't make it to the AGM, you can still check out all the auction items. So whether you're looking at the silent auction or you want to get in on the action on the live auction, you can do both online as well.
Yeah. So the online auction is ccfr.hibid.com. That's ccfr.hibid, HIBID.com. And the silent auction items are up there for open for bidding as we speak. So that
they're already being bid on.
Yeah, they're already being bid on. And then the simulcast for the live auction for the bigger items, that all happens in real time. So I guess according to our schedule, I think that kicks off at 7:45?
7:45 Alberta time. That's exactly right. Yeah. But you can go and you can go to ccfr.hibid.com and you can register to be a bidder. And what you can do is you can put in these little proxy bids that are kind of like behind the scenes bids on those live auction items. You can actually watch items as well. So let's say you wanted to bid on a silent auction item and you threw a bid on there right now, but you want to watch it to see if anybody else bids on it after you, which is kind of fun. You can sign up for that. You can watch an item. And then when somebody else outbids you, it'll send you notice like, hey, you've been outbid, better come and bid again. And it's kind of fun because it's like a virtual bidding war. But yeah, we'll watch for those just to go nuts because all of those items in that silent and live auction will be at the AGM in front of everybody. So it might drive them up a little higher. So we'll see if we have more bids from the people that are there in person or the people at home online at ccfr.hibid.com. But yeah, super, super fun.
Yeah. So, of course, all the proceeds from the auction go to help the CCFR and our projects. So a good cause, if I do say so myself. And you can get all that stuff at the websites mentioned. You can check. I will make sure I put the link in the description box below. And you can always go to ccfragm.ca. There'll be a link to the website I just talked about there. So very easy to find. And your help is most appreciated. All right, last thing is I had a little Twitter spat. Of course, we had some slobbering, drooling leftist, with all due respect to leftists.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, They used to, I call them leftists. They used to be centrists that have gone left. I mean, I was a centrist, right? So
Yeah.
I was never a right winger my whole life until the Overton window shifted to the left, and now people are actual centrists. If you looked at Canadian politics 20 years ago, and now they're called alt-right. So that tells you how far left the center has shifted and the left has shifted. But anyway, we had this guy in oddly enough in Vancouver, and Chris Johnson. He had a Twitter account, and he decided to say some really stupid things.
Yeah, so I was kind of having this back and forth with this other lady who was being rude and, talking about me disparagingly and whatever. I'm kind of used to it. And I usually try and make an example out of those. And I try and normalize the fact that, yeah, I'm a gun owner and a CCFR person, but I'm also all these other things. I wrote, I'm a mom and a grandma. My family serves this country. We advocate for fair and effective regulation. And, we want credible work to reduce crime and violence, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking about all the things that we've done, working with the parole board and law enforcement and the MCC. And this guy, Chris Johnson, comes along and he replies to me, you are a gun lobbyist. You promote violence in our country. Your children and grandchildren will be ashamed. And I was kind of taken back. I mean, people say all kinds of horrible things to me on Twitter. It's a total toilet, right? But I was like a little shocked because I do not promote violence. Like, what are you talking about? So I click on the guy because I'm like, I don't know who this dude is. Maybe he's just some Twitter troll. No, he's a criminal defense lawyer from Vancouver. And in his bio on Twitter, he had a link to his law firm website. So I go to the website, I click on it. This is all right through his profile. And under services, he represents people with firearms charges. So if you find yourself up against some firearm charges, among, all kinds of other types of criminal charges, just give him a call. And I kind of thought, wait a minute, like, you can't have it both ways, buddy, right? So anyways, our general counsel here at the CCFR, 𝐌𝐞𝐫𝐿𝐵, caught wind of this, and he kind of tweeted at the guy, and he says, I'll give you a proper opportunity to substantiate your public statement that Ms. Wilson promotes violence in our country. How would you like to do that? Like, Michael wants that information. If you've got that information, you must provide it. And of course, he deleted the tweet later that day. And then he eventually deleted his account. But yeah, at this point now, it's become a legal matter. And Mr. 𝐿𝐵𝐵 is talking to his law firm. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that'll work out, but you are accountable for the things you say, and you don't have to like me or like the things I stand for or even what I do. If you don't, you probably don't understand it, but you can't blatantly defame me in public like that. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, well, the point is you can't lie. Like, that's all.
Yeah, it's lie. I don't promote violence.
I think that's all we've ever said, right? And
Yeah.
same thing with Polly, and the same thing with the Liberals, and the same thing with, these slobbering, crazy journalists that we come into contact with from time to time. It's like you can disagree with us, and you can even be nasty in your comments. Like, that's okay. You just can't lie.
Yeah.
Because, it's if people normalize lying, and we're living in the worst time, I think, as long as I've been alive, as far as people accepting other people lying. Like, and I think you get to a point as a society where you get so detached from reality that there's really no way to find your way. There's no way for you to find your way back, right? Like, things start to get really out of hand really fast. But all we've said is just don't lie, right? So anyway, we've got
he's a lawyer too. Like, he's a lawyer.
Like, you should know
He knows
better, right? But anyway, so he deletes his account, and I don't know. I mean, he was served with a defamation notice.
Yes,
and
he
I don't know
was.
where that is right now, because I haven't talked to Mike lately in the last few days. But anyway, it's like, well, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. Just don't lie. That's all. It's not a high stinking bar, man. Like, the moral bar that we set is not high, bud.
Yeah. I don't know.
Just don't lie.
Well, and like, I don't know. I don't, the point is not to make a big spectacle out of everything, but yeah, you're in you're in a position where you should know better than this. It wasn't just some random Twitter account.
Yeah.
It's somebody who purports to defend, people within my community and outside it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're responsible for the things you say and do. That's just part of being a grown adult in Canada.
Yeah, so. Well, there's we have a lot of adult children in Canada right now, more than I've ever seen in my life. But okay, I hate to leave it off on a sour note like that, but
it's not sour. Lohberg, he's probably doing this, right? So
yeah, rubbing his hands. Yeah. I think his request was, "Do you mind if I play with this guy?" and your answer is, "Knock yourself out." So
yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't put it past Mike to take this guy all the way, but whatever, man. It's it is what it is. It's one of those FAFO things, or play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
That's exactly what it is. So
anyway, all right. I think we've gone at here 30 minutes. So thanks for the update, and I will see you at the AGM, and also see you in the next one.
All right, I'll see you then.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 167 of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Really appreciate it. And thanks for all your help keeping the CCFR going. Speaking of which, the AGM is coming up this weekend. There's no more tickets, unfortunately. But get online to the online auction at ccfr.highbid.com. That's ccfr.highbid.com. You can try to help the CCFR out by bidding on one of the silent auction items anytime. You can do that right now or tonight if you want to. And you can check out the simulcast of the live auction for the big items. You might think, well, hey, I think the wife and I should go to Africa and have the trip of a lifetime. That will be up to auction, and it'll probably be a great deal. And in the next episode, we're also going to go through all of the people that donated to the AGM, to those auction items. Really appreciate the help. Like, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the help that all kinds of different people give the CCFR, and we wouldn't be here and be able to look back at the during the AGM in particular, when I do kind of the ROD report, look back at all the things that we were able to do to fight back against this government. Can we change the government? No. Can we stop them from passing legislation? No, but we can sure make them drag their heels. We can embarrass them. We can make them pull back on certain things like the amendments. We can make it cost them politically. We can help turn the tide to get them out of government in the next election. We can do a lot of things, expose them for the lies and the corruption. And we do that all the time, right, on a daily basis, whether it's on social media, whether we do it in projects, whether we do it on mainstream television, whether we do it online. We have all kinds of things that we do, right? So all that, like, none of that is possible without help. So just the reality that we're able to do this work is, I just can't thank the people that help us enough. So anyway, just want to remind you, if you want to check that out, ccfr.highbid.com. If you're coming to the AGM, we'll see you there. If you're not, maybe we'll see you next year. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.
This is another episode of the CCFR Radio Podcast. Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.